My first question, that cover blurb for Mary Wept has David Henry Stubbs saying, Chester Brown is both God's and the devil's gift to the world. Any comments on that characterization?
Well, I think that's supposed to be flattering. I see what he means. I mean, this book is a book of biblical adaptations, and so it depends on how you see those interpretations. They could be seen as pressing both God's perspective and the devil's. It does make sense.
Do you have any control over those sorts of blurbs on your books, or are you just stuck with what the publisher chooses?
Well, there usually is a process where I'm sent the blurbs, and we talk back and forth about which ones are going to be used. In this case, we used all. These are the three blurbs we got, and I was fine with these three. With paying for it, the publisher solicited so many blurbs that we ended up not using a few of them. And I hope that the people who submitted those blurbs aren't annoyed with us for not using them. I'm happy with these blurbs.
Your career started over 30 years ago, so you've seen a lot of changes in the comics world. You started out when the alternative market was really just coming along, when serialization was normal, where the graphic novel practically didn't exist. Now, the graphic novel is more or less normal. Serialization is on the way out. So there's been massive changes in how the industry works. What's it like on the ground for a cartoonist today? And if you were going to start as a cartoonist today, what would you think someone should be trying to do to build a career?
Yeah, things were so different when I started that it seemed sensible. Like when I started, I self-published my work in zines, and that was a really good way to get your work out to some sort of an audience. Like the original original first edition of the Yummy Fur mini comic, the Yummy Fur zine, back in 1983 or 80, I think it was 1983. I printed 150 copies, and so that got out to 150 people, which seemed amazing at the time. Wow, 150 people are reading this stuff. And then that zine sold really quickly, and I printed another 150 and kept printing as was needed. But yeah, things are so different today with web comics out there. I think I'd be telling people or young cartoonists to go, both routes, to both put out your work in as a web comic, and also as a print zine, or in print in some fashion. I think. Yeah, it's that probably the possibility of having web comics or the having that option there is a good thing, I think. I mean, obviously you can get way more readers than you can if you only have 150 copies of your zine.
I know that people now are using things like crowdsourcing funding, and you and some other creators are using services like Patreon to sort of not really bypass, but I guess supplement conventional publishing. What do you see as the pluses and negatives of that kind of direct financial communication between artist and audience?
It's difficult to make a career. Well, it's difficult. I was going to say it's difficult to make a career in comics, but a career in the arts in general is difficult. making a living just as an artist, yeah, it's tough. And so options like that are good. If you know, I've built up some sort of a readership over the years, and those readers, apparently there are some of them who, you know, want to support me and continue to see work come out by me. And so, yeah, there's that option of, you know, making sure that that I continue to do work, and I try and give them some sort of bonuses or insight into my work, or and, you know, special things like that, special little publications or whatever that I send them. So yeah, it's the internet seems to be generally benefiting artists, it seems to me.
Okay, thank you. I think you may be the first, certainly you're the first cartoonist I noticed who started to use things like annotations and notes with your work. It's become a little more common since then, but certainly it's a major feature of your work. Can you talk about what was the impetus that made you feel that you should be annotating your work so that readers didn't just experience the comic unmediated, but had your context contextualizing and commenting on it?
Yeah, I began doing the notes with my gospel adaptations, and it seemed sensible with those. Like, I began adapting the gospels back with Yummy Fur number 4, back in 1987, I guess it would have been, and those works are so contested. What they mean, it's difficult to understand what they mean, and so it seemed to make sense to add notes to explain some background information, and of course, religious works, you know, there's all sorts of annotations usually in reprintings or printings of them. So yeah, and that just got me going on it. It seemed a good way to handle not just that, but like a book like Louis Riel. Again, it's a contentious subject, and if there are alternative readings of what Riel or whoever did, or I should explain more background material or whatever, or cite sources, then yeah, having the notes in a work like that is perfect. But it looks like our slideshow is up now, so.
Yeah, maybe to ensure you have time to get through that, we should shift over to that and then see what time we have left afterwards.
Yeah. So these are some chapters from the new book, Mary Wept Over the Feet of Jesus. So it starts out with, okay, perfect. I'll shift over to this. Okay. So the first chapter in this book is an adaptation of the story of Cain and Abel. Adam teaches his sons, Cain and Abel, how to grow crops. After you've plowed the field, you plant the seeds in the furrows. Incidentally, just to explain, I've blanked out the word balloons so you can't read ahead of me. In most of the panels, so I've left the words in some of them. Abel, pay attention. Yes, Father, I am. As Abel grows up, he begins to question his family's way of life. I've noticed that lions don't eat what grows out of the ground. They eat other animals. Plowing the fields, planting the seeds, keeping them irrigated, harvesting the crops, all of this is hard work. And it's uncertain work. Some years the crops fail and we have little to eat. Why don't we live like the lions? Why don't we eat animals instead of tending the fields? It looks like it would be easier. Don't even say such a thing. Your mother and I disobeyed Yahweh when we lived in Eden, and we were punished for it. We're not disobeying again. When we were expelled from the garden, Yahweh told us how to live. He instructed us to eat plants that grow out of the ground. He did not give us permission to eat animals. Yeah, we have to obey Yahweh. Behind his father's back, Abel kills a sheep, and he eats it. Cain is curious about what Abel is doing. I'm building a pen to keep the sheep fenced in. Why? So they don't wander off during the night. Cain reports Abel's activities to their father. We need you out in the field. I'm busy. It looks to me like you're sitting on your ass. I'm protecting the sheep, making sure that predators don't get at them. Do you expect us to share our food with you if you don't work for it? Because I've been eating these sheep, I'm already stronger than you. If you ever want to try meat, I'll gladly share what I have with you. I don't want it. But here, take these loaves of bread. Your mother baked them for you. Thank you, Father. That's it? You're going to let him disobey you? Ow! Why are you hitting me? I'm the one who's obeying you. Yahweh will punish Abel. Abel sees Cain building something. What are you doing? I'm making a sacrificial altar. We've had a good harvest. I'm going to sacrifice some of it to Yahweh. That's a good idea. Can I sacrifice some of my meat on your altar? Okay, we'll have to make the altar a bit wider. The brothers present their sacrifices. Abel, thank you for your sacrifice. What about my sacrifice? I reject it. Cain, why are you angry? If you do what is right, you will be accepted. Sin wants to control you. You must master it. Time passes. Come into the field. I want to show you something. What did you want to show me? It's there, down on the ground. Where? What? Look closely. At what? Where is your brother? How should I know? Am I my brother's keeper? What have you done? Your brother's blood soaks the ground. It will no longer yield its crops to you. I obeyed my father. I obeyed you. Why was he the beloved son? Go, you will wander the earth. And now we're jumping forward to a later chapter in which I adapt the parable of the talents that Jesus told. This is, of course, a biblical parable. The version that I have in here, in this book, is, just a second, is slightly different from the biblical one. The version in the Bible goes that there's a rich man who has many slaves, and he is about to go away on a trip. So he calls his 3 most trusted slaves to him, and he says, I'm going to entrust my money to you. The slave I trust the most, I'm giving you 5 talents. A talent was a large amount of money. The slave I trust the second most, I'm going to give you 3 talents. And the slave I trust the least, I'm giving 1 talent to. And so then he leaves, and the slaves are left to do something to do something with the talents. So the first 2 slaves both invest the money, and they double it. The third slave buries the talent in the ground and preserves it. And so then the master returns home, and the first 2 slaves both said, oh, we've doubled the amount of money, and the master is very happy with them. And the third slave who buried it and didn't, he was given 1 talent, he's only able to return 1 talent. The master is very unhappy with that slave, and he throws him in prison. So that's the original parable. Make of that what you will. Back in 2014, I was reading a book about the parables of Jesus, and I came across an alternate version of that parable. The church historian Eusebius, who lived, I think it was in the 4th century. He mentions in one of his books that there was an alternate version of this parable. There was a Hebrew version of the Gospel of Matthew that was then later translated into Greek, and this original Hebrew version of the Gospel of Matthew, this is all according to Eusebius, contains a different version of this parable. And so this is the alternate version, and I think it's the way that Jesus originally told the story. So, the talents. This is one of the parables that Jesus told. The 3 of you are my most responsible slaves. I'm going on a long journey and will return in 2 years. I'm leaving my wealth in your hands while I'm away. Enosh, I trust you the most, so you'll be taking care of 5 talents. Each chest contains a talent. Master, thank you for your trust. Ophir, you'll be taking care of 2 talents. Master, your confidence in me has not been misplaced. And Ezer, you'll be taking care of 1 talent. Master, I won't let you down. The 3 slaves talk to each other. What are you guys doing with the money? I know someone who's setting out on a trading mission and is looking for investors. He says he can double the investment. He can double your money? That's impossible. I've seen him do it before. But what if thieves attack him or his ship sink? A million things could go wrong and you'll lose the master's money. Yes, there are risks, but imagine how happy the master will be if I'm able to return 4 talents to him instead of 2. What about you, Enosh? What are you doing with the money? I'm not sure, but I know what I'm doing tonight. There's this gorgeous courtesan in town, but she charges an astronomical amount. I've never had enough money to sleep with her. Now I do. I plan on being at her place all night. What? You're spending the master's money on whores? Enosh, don't be stupid. How are you going to be able to return the talents to the master if you spend them? A night with this courtesan will only cost a few gold coins. Look at how much gold is in these chests. No one would even notice the missing coins. I'll figure out some way to replace them. Ezra goes off by himself. Those guys are insane. They're going to lose the talents. The only way to keep this chest safe is to bury it in the ground. When the master returns, those two will be empty-handed, and I'll be the one who's able to return the money. The master will see that he made a mistake and that he should have put all of his trust in me. 2 years pass. You spent all of the talents on whores? I wouldn't have thought that was possible in 2 years. The master will kill you. Yeah, he's a hard man. Do you think so? I've always found him to be a nice guy. You're going to see another side of him soon. Ophir, how did your friend's trading expedition go? I don't know, and I'm frantic with worry. Fortunately, his boat's due in later today, and the master isn't supposed to return till tomorrow. I'm going to go down to the docks to wait. Fools. The master returns and summons the 3 slaves. This is interesting. Let's go in the order of most to least. Ophir, you have 4 chests in front of you. Yes, master, I invested the talents with a trader who was able to double the amount. You gave me 2 talents. I'm returning 4 talents to you. I must say, I'm disappointed. You really should have done better. Better? But I gave you a return of 100%. What more could I have done? Relax, Ophir. I'm not going to punish you, although I probably should. Ezra, please explain why you have only 1 chest in front of you. Master, I know you can be harsh and that you reap what you haven't sown, so I buried the chest in the ground. What? Worthless slave. I give you all this wealth and you do nothing with it? Guards, throw this slave in prison. No, master. Give me another chance. Master. Enosh, you have no chests in front of you. What did you do with the money? I spent it on prostitutes. All of it? All 5 talents? Every single coin? I'm releasing you from slavery. You're a free man now. And as a gift, I'm giving you these 5 talents. Thank you. How does that old proverb go? Unto everyone who has shall be given, but from him who has not shall be taken away even that which he has. Now, like I said, I think that's the way Jesus originally told the parable. The way Eusebius conveys it, it's a little bit, his wording is imprecise, so there's a matter of interpretation there. Obviously, that's my interpretation. Now, one of the reasons why I made that interpretation is because of that story's similarity to another one of the parables of Jesus, the parable of the prodigal son. So I also did an adaptation of that one, and this one, I'm much more faithful to the biblical version than I was with the last one. So, the parable of the prodigal son. This is another parable that Jesus told. A man has 2 sons. The younger one makes a request. Rather than waiting for you to die to get my inheritance, I would like you to give me my share of your estate now. Very well. The father calculates how much his property is worth. Here is your share of my estate in gold. Thank you, Father. The younger son decides to leave home. Goodbye, goodbye. Don't worry, Father. I'll stay by your side and work in the fields. The younger son travels to a foreign land. Hi, good looking. Would you like to spend some time with me? How much will it cost? How much do you have? A traveler visits the father and the older son. While I was traveling, I ran into your other son. Oh, how is he? He's healthy, but I'm sorry to have to tell you that he seems to be wasting all of his money on whores. Ha! The younger son eventually runs out of money. Please, sir, I'm destitute and need work. Do you have a job that I could do? Sure, I'll hire you to look after my pigs. The farmer pays very little. I'm so hungry. Even the slop I feed these pigs looks good to me. My father hires men to work for him. They eat well. Maybe if I return home, I can convince him to hire me as a worker in his fields. Time passes. Can it be? Is that him? It is. My son has returned. Father, I've sinned against you. I'm not asking you to take me back as a son, but to hire me as a worker in your fields. Stand up, you're still my son. I spent all the money on whores. Yes, I know. You don't understand. I love you because of what you did, not despite it. Quick, bring my son the finest clothes from my closet, rings for his fingers, sandals for his feet. You, go get the fattest calf and have it killed, and hire musicians and dancers. We will have a feast to celebrate your return. The older son has been working in the field. At the end of the day, he walks back to the house. Music. Why do I hear music? What's going on? Why has my father hired musicians? Your brother has returned, so your father has killed the fattest calf, and we're celebrating. A while later, Sir, your other son is outside. Oh, yes, I guess I forgot about him. Well, tell him to come in. He's refusing to. He's just standing out there. Come into the house. Welcome your brother home. He went off and wasted his inheritance on whores. When he ran out of money, he groveled home, and you welcomed him back with a celebratory feast. I stayed here. I slaved for you. I did whatever you told me to do. I obeyed you, yet you've never had a feast for me. Why is he the beloved son? In his disobedience, your brother is alive. You, in your resentful subservience, are dead. Do you think God wants mindless worshipers who can only follow instructions? And that's the end of the reading. Sure, okay.
We have about 15 minutes left, so rather than hogging Chester's time, I thought I would just open it up to questions. So if any of you would like to ask Chester something, please stand up and fire away. If not, I can certainly think of questions. Yeah, I know.
I'm not a biblical scholar and academic as well, but why did the version that you did first gain prominence in the one that you chose to use the first one, when they did not go the
I think the biblical version of the parable of the talents is a censored version. I suspect that, yeah, Jesus told the parable one way, and by the time the Gospels were written down, it was a few generations later, and Christians by that point were uncomfortable about Jesus' stance on prostitution, I think. And so they censored the story. That's what I think happened.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Could you repeat the statement to he who has and he who has not?
Right. Okay. Now, so the question is, could I repeat this, the line from this panel? Okay. And this is how Jesus ends this parable. Unto everyone who has shall be given, but from him who has not shall be taken away even that which he has. Yeah, it's kind of one of those enigmatic things that Jesus says that you have to scratch your head over. My interpretation is that Jesus is talking about wisdom. The person who has wisdom understands that everything he has in life or everything you need in life is what you already have. And you keep, life just seems to keep giving you more if you have wisdom. Whereas if you don't have wisdom, it feels like you are always losing things and you're never dissatisfied or you're always dissatisfied with what you have. That's my interpretation.
Did you have a question about that, or did you just want to hear that repeated?
Yeah,
You don't have to answer the question. Let's say a young girl jumped out in front of you in Hamilton or any city, big city, and said to you, would you like or have sex with me or whatever. So a young girl comes up to you, she's a prostitute. You're not keen or able, I don't know which one it would be. Maybe you want to speak on that, maybe you wouldn't. What would you say if that person jumped out in the middle of the road and said,
a young woman jumps out at me in the street and says, would I like, well, I mean, I've been in that situation.
like evidently underage?
Oh, underage. Oh, of course.
Looking underage as well.
Of course I'd say no. I suppose in that situation I'd just give her money and wish her well with her life. But yeah, I would not, take her up on the offer. Yeah.
That's an amazing answer you just gave. Unexpected answer.
Really? Okay.
Because why not be the one who went to the prostitutes and then have a party?
Well, I have seen a lot of prostitutes in my life, but yeah, patronizing underage prostitutes, that's a very different thing from sleeping with adult ones who have chosen that life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered collaboration with another artist, and if you did, how would you see that happening? Would it be you collaborating with another artist, another writer? How would that work? Or
I tend to prefer doing everything myself. I have collaborated a few times, usually with friends. Actually, a good friend of mine named Joe Matt used to have this sketchbook that he would. There were three of us who hung around all the time: the cartoonist Seth, and Joe, and me. And so we would pass this sketchbook around and just make up stories on the spot, kind of. One of us would do one panel, another one would do the next panel, and so on. So I guess that's a form of collaboration, but really it was just kind of like a fun game to pass the time. There was another time when Seth had a tight deadline, and so I think he had a tight deadline, and he wanted me to finish the story. Well, he wanted me to do the inks on this story. He did. He was drawing a story for another writer, and a writer named Dennis Eichhorn, and so yeah, Seth was doing the pencils. He asked me to do the inks. And yeah, then Seth stopped. He drew, I think, the first 4 pages of the story. I think it was a 5-page story, and then he was delaying finishing that 5th page. And the writer came to me and said, "Can you move Seth somehow? Can you get him to finish that last page?" And so Joe and I went over to Seth's place and kind of we all kind of jammed together on that last page and got it finished. But yeah, it's easier just working by yourself. You don't have these sorts of conflicts and problems.
Do you find that generally the best cartoonists are the ones who do all of themselves as opposed to ones who part it out?
I tend to favor comics that are done by one creator, but I mean, there are obviously great comics that are collaborations. You know, most of Alan Moore's great stuff was done with collaborators, you know, where he would write and they would draw. And Harvey Pekar did amazing comics too. So yeah, you can't make a rule about these things, but yeah, I generally favor comics done by one creator. Yep. Yeah, what you said, that I was looking for a tone kind of in between the sound of the original biblical language and yeah, something more modern, and kind of going back and forth a bit. It just seemed natural. I didn't struggle with it too much. It seemed okay. This is a panel where it feels good to have it sound more whatever, to have the language sound more biblical, and here, yeah, you can be a bit more irreverent here. Yeah, just played it by ear. Yeah, in the back.
You said that you prefer cartoons that are treated along theater. And the question
Yeah.
is, are we all kinds of cartoons walking the earth? And they are funny because there was just one theater. If there were 2 or 3 creators, it wouldn't be as funny.
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Not an easy question. Never mind. It doesn't have a tough question. Yes. You said that there was one creator. If there's one creator of a cartoon,
Yeah.
then it's better usually. Not always, but
Right.
Are we people
Oh.
cartoons and good cartoons because there was one creator?
As opposed to, say, a god who assigned
Yeah.
a demiurge the job of, like, filling in the corners and making the shrubs and so on?
Yeah. A philosophical question. Yeah, that would be an interesting world if it was a competition between various creators. Actually, that's sort of what Dave Sim believes, isn't it?
Yeah, actually.
That Dave Sim is another cartoonist. He does a comic, or he did a comic book called Cerebus. And yeah, his interpretation of the Bible is that it's kind of about two gods and the struggle between those two gods. It's an interesting interpretation, although I think few people are willing to read through that section of Genesis to understand what he's really saying. But yeah, if you're interested in that idea of what, well, then that might be an interesting book to read. I think is it the last volume or second to last volume?
Latter Days, the penultimate, the second last volume is the one that has his version of Genesis with the female demiurge.
Right.
And that's
Yeah. It's how many volumes are there again?
16, I believe.
16. Okay, so it would be
15.
volume 15. Yeah.
Latter Days would be the title of it.
Mm-hmm.
Followed, of course, by The Last Day.
Yep.
What version of the scriptures were you referring to? Did you go into the message by Eugene Peterson to get more colloquial language, or did you just go from what you took in Sunday school and go from there?
Oh, Eugene Peterson, I don't know that version. I did have a whole bunch of different translations in front of me. Usually the one, my go-to first translation is the NIV, the New International Version. But yeah, I've had a whole bunch. Just, yeah.
Transliteration is called The Message,
Okay.
and it's becoming more popular
Mm-hmm.
because it is written in a more colloquial, modern-day language.
Mm-hmm. Well, the NIV is pretty easy to understand too. Yeah. Yeah.
I was really interested in you citing Eusebius, and also particularly the Cain and Abel. That seems like a very odd interpretation, but it actually fits really well with a lot of Christian scholarship. And so that it's obvious you've really looked into this from the historical perspective. And I was just wondering, specifically on the subject of prostitution, if there are any church fathers or other historical authors that have that kind of the minority viewpoint that was kind of against the kind of the typical Christian perspective that you've seen.
No, none of the. By the time of the church fathers, I think the Christian attitude about prostitution had been set. I think it was set by Paul, who of course didn't know Jesus and was writing after Jesus. And I don't think Paul understood Jesus's views on the subject. So yeah, there aren't any church fathers. As far as Cain and Abel goes, I was taking my interpretation from a modern fellow who, let me see if I can find the name of that guy again. I think his book was called The Philosophy of the Hebrew Scriptures. Yes. Jerome, yes. The book is called The Philosophy of Hebrew Scripture by a fellow named Yoram Hazony. And yeah, that was his interpretation, that God favors the rebels, basically. And he thinks that starts right at the beginning with the Cain and Abel story. But he gives other examples from the scriptures. Yeah.
It's not so much a question of sort of appealing the prostitution camp, but maybe Jesus said that those who have a lot will be given more, and those who have nothing will be taken, even that will be taken away. It could be equated in a way to that saying that says, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Sure, there's a bit of a connection there, yeah.
We maybe have time for one more quick question, and then we have to break and clear the room for the next group. Anyone?
Could you just read a random few lines from one of your books, as many seconds that you have left? Read to us like as if we were your children.
Wait, okay. I'm going to read the last line from Paying for It. He asked if I could read something from one of the other books. So, this is the last panel from Paying for It, which is about my autobiographical experiences paying prostitutes for sex. Paying for sex isn't an empty experience if you're paying the right person for sex.